Hey everyone, uh, Alex here, and here with yet another movie review after a long time having done so. I originally wanted to do one on Aquaman, but didn't really have the time to do it. I originally wanted to, but it is what it is. But I did go and watch another movie as of yesterday, Alita Battle Angel, which is yet another attempt from Hollywood to adapt an anime or and manga to the Western big screen. And anyone who knows about Hollywood's various attempts at translating video games and Japanese animes and mangas over the years knows that they generally don't have a good record of success, to say the least. And the crown jewel of failure for that is undoubtedly Dragon Ball Evolution, which I am sad to say I saw years ago. And oh man, that movie was not good, not good at all. So years later, after many of this, we find after many years of and various laughable failures since, we finally get another one from 20th Century Fox from James Cameron, Mr. Terminator and Aliens himself, who's producing it along with direction by Robert Rodriguez, whose last movie I can remember seeing was the third Predator movie, Predators, which I thought was okay. Could have been better, could have been worse. It had its moments and its low points. Excuse me. And from what I've heard, Cameron has been trying to get this movie off the ground for years, and the reason why he never attempted it until now is because he wanted to wait till technology in Hollywood was good enough to do it. Well, fast forward about a decade and several delays later, we finally get this damn movie as of early 2019. And you know what? This movie wasn't bad. In fact, it's a long shot from bad. If anything, I would say this is probably one of the better adaptations we've seen in years. At least that's what everyone has said, anyway. Now, full disclaimer, I've never read the original Battle Angel Alita manga. I know of it. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I just haven't read it yet. But after this movie, I definitely would like to read it just to know more about it, and also because, well, it wouldn't be the first time an outside source has really given me motivation to want to get into something, like say Space Marine and how that got me into 40K. Anyway, so the general setting of Alita Battle Angels basically it's set in about 300 years from now in the future. There was a big war between Earth forces and human forces from Mars, because it's set in a world where we've taken to space, we've expanded as a species up to different parts of the solar system, allegedly anyway. Again, never read the manga. And apparently there was a big war where it was so bad that pretty much the world civilization as we know it is completely gone, with the last city on Earth being one that floats above the Earth called Solemn, and is divided between Solemn, the upper city, and the Solemn itself, which is basically the upper city hovering over the rest of us, the common folk, in a rather dumpster fire of a town. And it's cyberpunk, it's a cyberpunk world where machines and robots and cyborgs are commonplace, and and also seen where pretty much any and all consideration for the human body is not exactly appreciated. Like if name a limb or an organ, it's probably replaced by something at some point in time by somebody, and it can be from just a regular guy from with just a replacement arm made out of tools and construction equipment to a hulking mercenary where the only thing left is just his face. And his character, Dr. Ego, he finds the decapitated remains, and by decapitated I mean just the head. He doesn't find anything else. The head of this female cyborg who he dubs Alita. And from there, and he, he gives her a body that he had made for his dead daughter, including name, and she does not remember who she is, what her purpose was, and she's pretty much just, for all intents and purposes, brought back from the dead to into his time, and a lot of the movie circles around Alita trying to get her memories back, rediscover her purpose, and eventually it all culminates into her trying to get into the main sport of her world, Battle Ball, I think, or something. Think of it as like NASCAR, but chasing after a soccer ball, and the players are like cybernetic monstrosities. And of course she gets into trouble with the main bad guy named Vector, who of course is really the underling of, from what I've read, the series' main bad guy, at least for a time anyway, Nova. And so that's pretty much the basic stuff of the movie. I'm not really going to spoil much other than that in the setup, because if you've never read the manga like I have, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I can honestly, and in terms of visuals and overall look for the film, I can understand why Cameron waited as long as he did to make this movie, because there's a lot of things about it that, even with prosthetics, you would have had a field day trying to make this. And it's a very cool looking movie. I would say this is probably the most anime movie that I've seen in a long time from Hollywood. And that's saying something. And there's a lot of cool scenes, and it's well shot too by Rodriguez. He shoots this movie very well. And I was hoping it would do good, because after several delays of this movie, when it was supposed to come out last year, I was a little worried that maybe it wouldn't be good, but he managed to pull it off. And music's good too. It's just, but I will admit though, there are some things, avant-garde about it that you're either gonna like about it or maybe be a little uncomfortable. One of the few things is Alita herself, at least visually, because they went with what I can best describe as a very anime-ish Japan face. You know how how in a lot of Japanese anime, the main artistic trait is, big eyes and just very cutesy look. You know what I mean? Well, they do that with mocap and CGI for Alita, and it does look a little strange in some shots, but after a while it did grow on me, and I ultimately get where they were going for with it, and for the most part I think they pulled it off. It's something that you'll either grow accustomed to, maybe you won't like it, I don't know. Me personally, I grew to deal with it after a while. And for the most part, it worked okay. The casting for this movie is surprisingly very good, filled with names that I think I've heard a couple of while, but never really was exposed to, as well as some much more recent stars, and they all do a pretty good job for the most part. The main Alita herself is played by Rosa Salazar, and she does a fine performance in this movie. I really bought this character as this cybernetic being who's not only, amnesiac, but also is fighting for the people that she cares for, and for reasons for that. And given And she does come across at somewhat almost of a Mary Sue kind of character, since she's very tough in terms of in terms of fighting techniques, to the point that she's almost unbeatable. But once the movie gets going, she actually does. She doesn't really become a Mary Sue role. If anything, she actually has a lot of character put into her, and when she stumbles all right, and and just when you think that she's going at anything unchallenged, the plot takes a gives her a stark reminder that nope, you think you're a hot shot, but really you're kind of getting in over your head, which is more than I can say for a lot of other movies that try to go for the quote strong female character, only to make them completely overpowered, picture perfect with no flaws at all, and just not fail at any point whatsoever. This movie, thankfully, well, at first makes it seem like it's going for that, pulls the rug from under it, and I liked it for that. Also, Christoph Waltz plays Dr. Ego. There are some points where he kind of phones it in, but for the most part, he did it okay. Marshall Ali plays the main foil for the movie, being Vector. While he's not one of the most active protagonists I've ever seen in the movie, antagonists I've seen in a movie, he does pretty good. If anything, it's probably the last thing I honestly saw him in was in the Netflix's Hulk Cage, and I thought he did good here as well. And of course, above him is Nova, who is basically the Emperor Palpatine. You don't see him much, except for a few scenes where he's played by Edward Norton, and don't expect to see him be much except in few voice bits, as well as the cameos I mentioned. But as he is the Emperor Palpatine of the movie, and think of it as like Star Wars: A New Hope, where you have the first movie that deals with a lot of the lower bad guys, and as well as ones that may be directly connected to some extent to the leader, but you eventually build up to that character, kind of like what Star Wars did with Palpatine to an extent, and that's pretty much where I think they're going with it. If they allow for a sequel, of course, which I honestly hope they do. And I really love seeing this character Alita go from rediscovering who she is, and honestly, it gives a lot of good windows to the world building. This is a very cool universe that this movie gives us a window in, and I really would like to see more of it, not just in the film, but also from the manga as well. Hence why I want to start reading it. And I do like the setup for the world too. It's so common how in a lot of Japanese anime and video games they toy around with the whole Earth versus Martian, as in originally from Earth Martians or space colonies, and just revolve around this versus them as their main plot point. Whereas this basically takes place right after that kind of conflict. And basically, like, okay, you've seen this kind of war scenario so many times. Well, here's an aftermath story. It's kind of like after war Gundam X in that regard. It's not something that I'm used to seeing, and I really liked it for that. And like I said, the acting is very good. Visually, it's very good. And the plot did surprise me in ways. Then again, granted, this is assuming you've never read the manga, and I definitely would like to see more of it. As for the one thing that I think everyone seems to be complaining about, it's the romance between Alita and the other main male lead, Hugo. And I was not bothered by the romance as much as others, but there are some pretty terrible George Lucasian bits here and there that are like, but I get it, and it could have been better. But then again, from what I've heard, fans of the manga thought it was terrible too. So who knows? I guess this is one of the few times where both the adaptation and the source material have something in common that actually is wrong. And it didn't bother me personally, other than a few lines, but hey, it is what it is. Pick your poison. Some will either like it, some either won't. I'm personally in the middle with it. The only other character I can think of in this movie was Jennifer Connelly's character, who plays the estranged wife of Dr. Ego. Not much is really done with her. She's one of the few characters in the movie that honestly doesn't really have much to do, in my opinion. Other than her, there's a few mercenary characters here and there who are known as hunter warriors, and they do end up being some pretty cool fight moments for Alita. Overall, while not a flawless movie, I would say Battle Angel Alita is certainly in a lot of ways a far cry from repeated failures from Hollywood in terms of anime adaptations, whether it be Dragon Ball Evolution or the other more recent Death Note. Hell, from what I've heard, even Japanese attempts tend to flounder from time to time, like that more recent Full Metal Alchemist adaptation, which is also on Netflix, by the way. And no, I'm not gonna watch that piece of shit because that's what I wanted. Because I like to not waste my brain on bad movies, if you know what I mean. Unless it's something I really am interested in, like Death Note. And well, yeah, Death Note was pretty laughably bad. Thankfully, this is not one of those cases, and I highly recommend checking out Alita Battle Angel if you get the chance, especially if you want a movie based on a world that's both interesting, based on a character that is actually freaking decent. And I honestly hope that the movie makes well enough to warrant a sequel, because I honestly would like to see this movie get a sequel. Not and also it's also pretty surprising that despite wanting to get this movie made for years, James Cameron just produced it and handed the direction duty to Robert Rodriguez. Guess James is still busy trying to get the freaking blue cat alien furries with the next Avatar movies going. Ugh, James. Nobody's interested. Almost nobody is interested in the Avatar movies at this point. You've taken way too long. Give up, please. Do something productive with your career for once. Anyway, as far as this movie's concerned, and as an adaptation, I think it's fine. I think it's good. Not perfect, but it's a decent first step for hopefully a good string of movies based on a Japanese franchise, and one that I felt did it admirably well for the most part, since it actually, well, from what everyone has said, adapted it without unnecessary bullshit like so many others have done. So yeah, I give Alita Battle Angel a thumbs up. I hope another movie comes down the road that doesn't take a million years to do. And yeah, Rosa Salazar, keep up the. Hope you get to do it again, and that you go places with it. And if Robert Rodriguez is still on directing duty, or James Cameron gets back on board in directing duty, who knows what happens? I look forward to see what they do too, and I hope that this movie does enough to warrant a second chapter, because I really would like to see more of it. And yeah, I not much to say other than I really want to read the manga now. So yeah, that's my review of Alita Battle Angel. Like it, I liked it. Go see it whenever you can. Thumbs up. I recommend it. And as an adaptation, it's very good. And I hope this sends a message to Hollywood that yeah, the rest of you can make good anime movies. So with that said, I'm gonna call it here, and I'll go continue my playthrough of Devil May Cry 2, and until the next movie review. Peace.